Our topic today will start with a very serious event, an event that is being confirmed. The world is about to enter a completely new phase, a phase that no one expected, not even the top experts in the world. This week, America is boiling. The American media is consumed by just one piece of news, a story they've described as the most dangerous geopolitical upheaval since the fall of the Soviet Union. And the story, in short, is that it's being said that President Trump is preparing to establish a world government made up of 5 countries. Trump is planning to sideline the G20, planning to sideline the G7, and planning to bring down the liberal order. Then he plans to replace all that with a new world government. Comprised of just 5 countries, these nations will lead the world in the next phase. Which countries are they? Why were some countries marginalized? What exactly is happening in the world? We'll reveal this today. Stay tuned after the break. Dear viewers, peace be upon you, and welcome to today's episode in this ongoing series of opinion episodes this week, God willing. Dear viewers, there is no talk in America except about an idea that may seem radical, an idea that some might find a bit strange, a bit bold. But for those who understand Trump's personality, who understand how Trump thinks, what is Trump planning? Why is Trump this straightforward? He will find that the idea is ordinary and expected, and it was bound to happen. This idea, which is now the talk of everyone in America, is the creation of a new world bloc called C5. It's clear that Trump is now planning to turn the tables on everyone, because we all know that the strongest international blocs over the past years or decades have been the G20 and the G7 groups. The G20 group includes the 20 strongest countries. From an economic perspective, it's a group that brings together developed and developing countries. That means we're talking about America, Russia, China, Britain, France, Germany, and we're also talking about developing countries like Turkey, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Brazil, and so on. In other words, it's a group that brings together all countries of the world, without exception, without ideological exception, countries from both the East and the West together. And what was the purpose of this group? What is it? To reach compromises between developed and most developing countries. That's the goal. But the Western countries, the developed countries, took control of this group and started imposing decisions on the other member countries in this group. I mean, in the past, they used to meet in the G7, make their own decisions, and then come to the G20 and impose those decisions on these countries, like the form of democracy they want, like energy issues, clean energy, and climate change. These matters were imposed on developing countries. And these developing countries like Saudi Arabia, Turkey, South Africa, Brazil, and Argentina didn't have a say within this group. Everything is imposed by France, Germany, Britain, and so on. So things have gone completely off track from the real goals, the intended goals of this group, from the founding of this group. Then we also find the G7 group, this group that includes the 7 strongest economies. But among the liberal systems, we find that they are the strongest countries in the world industrially and economically, but without Russia, without China, and without India. For example, a group that includes only what are called Western countries, America, Britain, France, Germany, Italy, then Japan and Canada, meaning the strongest liberal countries that have dominated the world for decades. So, the new thing today is that the American newspaper Politico published news that shook the 4 corners of the world, saying that America is preparing to establish a new group, a new global bloc, completely different. This bloc will lead the world in the coming phase, and this new bloc will include only 5 countries. I mean, is this the surprise? Only 5 countries. Who are these countries? Is it America? Of course, Russia, China, then India and Japan. 5 countries. So if this new bloc is actually established, these countries will be the ones leading the world in the coming phase. We could say that this group will be like the new world government. America will be the chair of the global board or the head of the world government, while the other countries, China, Russia, India, and Japan, will be members, part of this government. So it's clear that the American president is determined to put an end to the liberal system that has dominated the world for many decades. It's clear that he is preparing to make the biggest change the world has seen since World War II in order to save America from the coming collapse. The G20 will not continue. Why? Because it includes countries that Trump considers undeserving. The G7 will not continue because it has countries that are not truly representative. Some countries today no longer have any weight in the world, like France, Britain, and Italy. They once held significant global influence and used to dominate in various ways. Many developing countries like Egypt, Libya, Algeria, Morocco, and other countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. But now they have lost this influence. Today, they no longer have this weight, this international weight. They have no weight at all anymore. They have become just ordinary countries. And even more than that, they are suffering internally today. Also, these countries are considered by Trump to be run by liberals, with leaders who are liberals. That's why America sees it as illogical now to share global leadership with such countries. That's why it is now planning to form this new bloc without these European countries. And this, as I said, anyone who follows these developments, who follows these new changes happening in the world, will know. This means that this new group aligns exactly with Trump's vision for the world, not only ideologically, but also in terms of power and the future of these countries. Trump wants to form a bloc with major powers that have their own spheres of influence and significant global weight, not with countries that have become weak and are losing their spheres of influence. Every time, Trump also wants to sit at the same table with strong leaders, not with leaders who don't even have popularity within their own countries. Leo, in fact, this idea of Trump's is a very practical one. We could say that Trump believes the time has come to implement this plan, and that this plan is completely in line with American interests. If the new American national security strategy, which we talked about in one of the previous episodes, if this strategy prioritizes the Latin American region, America's priority, this does not mean that America will not be interested in what happens in other parts of the world, or that it will give up its sovereignty, the sovereignty over the world, not at all. If America now, under the Trump administration, rejects liberalism and rejects globalization, this does not mean it will let these countries do whatever they want. On the contrary, it is planning a way to control what happens in the world. What angered Trump and made him plan today to establish this new group is what? What is it? That these developing countries have started to join new regional blocs. We have seen the Shanghai group, we have seen the Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa group, and how this group is growing day by day. More than that, these developing countries have started planning from within this group, planning to form a new world order with China. They have started demanding reform of the United Nations Security Council, started calling for boycotting the United States dollar and trade transactions, and more. And this means that if the situation remains as it is without any American intervention, a day will come when we will find America completely isolated, and perhaps we will find it economically collapsed. That's why Trump started thinking of a plan to get out of this crisis, out of this predicament. The international situation today is completely different, meaning threats, imposing power, and so on. These methods are no longer effective today. They're not effective at all anymore. The world has reached a point where America, for example, can't impose sanctions on a country just because it decided to trade in its local currency instead of the dollar. That used to be possible in the past, but now it can be done. Why? because this would escalate the conflict even more. It would push these countries into the arms of China and Russia. There are alternatives now, even more than that. It would lead to America's isolation, because the whole world, developing countries, are rising collectively. That's why Trump, instead of resisting these countries, instead of fighting this situation, he is now planning to share global leadership with these powers that everyone is now hiding behind. The major powers, China, Russia, and India. And for America to remain the leader of the world, this way it guarantees that leadership stays with it, stays with America. And here, Trump chose these countries very carefully. Of course, everyone knows why he chose China. China has become a global superpower and is now the world's largest economy. The Chinese yuan is actually a very strong currency that could topple the dollar if China wanted to, but China is the one manipulating the value of this currency today to keep it at this level. And this industrial and commercial performance continues in China. China is the top candidate to lead the world and take America's place. And instead of making this country his rival, Trump wants to include it today. He wants to make it one of the countries that will rule the world, but under America's leadership. That's how it is. That's also the plan. Trump chose Russia. Why did he choose Russia? Because Russia succeeded? A remarkable success in this test that took place in Ukraine. I mean, Russia proves to everyone that it's strong even economically. Despite all these sanctions, the economy did not collapse. The Russian economy, Russian influence is increasing strongly. I mean, in several regions. It's growing in Africa. It's growing in the Eurasia region. It has been strongly reinforced in the Middle East, through Yemen and Iran and so on. Today, it's also increasing in Latin America. And so Russian influence has become strong. In fact, the influence that Britain and France used to have is now with the Russians. Moreover, this Russian influence might even extend into the heart of Europe. I mean, at any moment, because many candidates for the presidency of European countries have good relations with Russia at any moment. We might hear, for example, that France is a Russian sphere of influence. Or we might hear that Germany is a Russian sphere of influence, or Spain or others. So Russia has proven that it truly deserves to be part of the new government that will rule the world. Then we also find that Trump chose India and chose Japan. India is a strong economic power with tremendous capabilities that rival those of China. So America sees, first of all, that this power India has cannot be ignored. India absolutely cannot be marginalized or excluded from this new lower bloc. India, it could turn the tables at any moment if not given a share in ruling the world. If marginalized, it could unite and turn the tables. For example, these are developing countries forming a competing bloc, so this matter is carefully studied. The important thing is that India could cause very big problems for America, so it was chosen for this strange bloc today. It is not in the same power as those who chose it, but it was chosen, meaning it is part of this bloc. There is no Europe. These countries that were completely absent from this, like Europe and Canada. No European countries in this bloc. This means that Europe is truly collapsing today. This means that Europe will have no significance in the future. The European Union might collapse at any moment in the future. We also notice the absence of any country from Africa. Of course, this is because up until now, Africa does not have any country with a sufficient economic and strategic level to be a member of the world government. Even South Africa, which was a member of the G20 and is considered a member of the G20, its level has declined significantly, both in terms of the economy and its own influence. We also notice the absence of one of the most important countries in Latin America, the rising power in the world, Brazil. This is because Trump, as everyone may recall from the United States National Security Strategy, considers this region, Latin America as a whole, to be an American sphere of influence. He sees it as under America's control and believes it should be subject to the United States. Therefore, Brazil has not reached the level of participating in world governance. We also notice the absence of all Arab and Islamic countries, not even a single one. This bloc will not include Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Pakistan, or any others. And this is because these countries are originally under American influence. And the influence of these countries is very limited in the region. The efforts of Arab and Islamic countries are scattered. There is still a major struggle between these countries over influence. In Trump's view, these countries have not yet reached the level where they can share in ruling the world. In Trump's view, even if these countries are marginalized, they won't do anything, they can't do anything. That means they are not able to turn the tables. They don't have the necessary power to turn the tables, like India, for example. So now there is a plan. There are Trump moves to save America, but the question remains, and then what? Will these countries like China, Russia, and India agree to the intervention of this bloc? Will they be willing to sit at the same table with America and let America take the lead? Will they be willing to let the leadership of the world government remain with America and just be a part of the game? Members of this bloc? Will China be willing to sit with Japan? Everyone knows what the relationship between China and Japan is like today. Will China be willing to sit at the same table with Japan to manage world affairs? There are questions being asked. Answer us in the comments below this video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Peace be upon you and goodbye.